Hey everyone. I'm a little nervous, so just bear with me. But my name's Mia. Most of you pretty much know me for the most part. But I just graduated high school this past year, and I'm home from college. I just finished my first semester at Trevecca in Nashville. So I'm so excited to get to, yeah, go Trojans. I'm so excited to get to speak with you guys and just share what's on my heart, and I'm just really thankful for this opportunity. So I'm just going to pray one more time. So, dear Lord, I just thank you for tonight, God. I thank you for the opportunity. Lord, I just pray that it would be your words, not mine, Lord, and that someone would just encounter you tonight, God, and you'd really speak to at least one person in this room, God. I thank you so much for who you are to us, and I love you. Amen. Okay, so I'm so excited to get to talk to you guys tonight. But yeah, kind of like what Kim was saying, 2020, kind of crazy, and I'm not really going to talk about it a lot today because I know for me, I've been so sick of it, like just everything that's been happening and just always talking about it, everything. It's just been so heavy and really a lot, and I just think it's important, to reflect on the year, especially this time. This is the time where we reflect on the year, and then we make goals, and we go into the new year. But really, I think tonight my message is going to be praising in the pit, and yeah, there it is. And I just think for all of us, 2020 has probably been a pit for us, and meaning, we felt stuck, secluded, isolated, kind of just soaking in our sorrow because so much loss has happened in our world with COVID, but also in each personal life. And it's kind of hard when we're going into a new year because it's like, oh, new beginnings, fresh starts, everything like that, but we still have the junk of 2020 around us. COVID's still happening. And, the losses have still happened. We've lost so much, and that's something we can't really get back. So that's why I just really felt like God laid this message on tonight. And so I really just want to start with some life-giving truth that I think we all need to really remember. Okay, this is what I was going to be nervous about when I'm flipping switches. But something that we can all really remember, and I think it's a truth that's known to us, but so many times we take it for granted and we really forget, how weighty this gift that we have. So I'm going to be in 1 Peter 1 a little bit, and I'm going to read verses 3 through 5. The title's Born Again to a Living Hope. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. So I really just wanted to talk about the idea of living hope because I really think hope is a word that is kind of confused now in today's society because it's known as wishful thinking or positivity. When you're hoping for something, you're kind of dreaming about something. But really, this hope that's talked about in 1 Peter is so different because it is called a living hope. And, because of Jesus, we've been born into this living hope. And it's a hope that lives on. And I think lives on through thick and thin. A hope that has endurance. A hope built on Jesus Christ, a lively hope that comes from the assurance of our salvation, because I just think that's really something to give praise about, because that's the one thing that can't be taken away is eternity, and it just goes back to the fact that we have the victory already, and that's something that can pull us out of a pit, really, is that living hope, because, we all talk about how much we need hope in this time, and the wishful thinking and the positivity doesn't really go far, but this living hope that's talked about here is something so important, and that's Jesus. And I think it's something that can motivate us to get out of the bed in the morning and give us purpose for each day, which is really what we need. And then I was just thinking about it, because this happens to me all the time. I'm like, okay, well, we have this living hope, and it's so important, but then why do we still live in fear and sorrow and anger and all of these things? Because I am so convicted of the same. And so I really started thinking about that, and I was like, but why aren't we really living into that, even though we know how great a gift this is? And So I'm just going to read 2 Corinthians 1, 9 through 10 really quick. It says, hold on. Okay. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death, but that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. He delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us. On him we have set our hope that he will deliver us again. So just back to the same thing of hope. Like, he is our hope, and we went from death to life because what he did. He defeated death. He defeated the grave. And I just think that's such an important thing to continue thinking about and knowing that, we do deserve a sentence of death, but because of Jesus and what he's done and his love for us, we don't have that. And that's something, again, to have some praise about. And so as I was thinking about that, I was just, same thing. Okay, we had this hope, but we're still stuck in all this anxiety and everything like that. And really, it's because we get so focused on the troubles here on earth and just everything around us, which is valid. It can be overwhelming and everything like that. But I just feel like God really wanted me to say we need to really turn our eyes on heaven again and just fix our gaze instead of, the pit that we're in and the tall walls around us, thinking, how can we ever get out of this hopelessness, being confident in heaven and fixing our eyes to heaven. And so that's kind of my challenge for 2021. I'm such a person who, picks a word for the year and, makes resolutions. But this year I honestly didn't because I was like, I just don't feel like I need to. But really, I think this is the challenge that God has revealed to me. It's just keep your focus on me, turn your eyes back to heaven. And so now we're going to go back to 1 Peter 1, verse 6. And I love how it starts out after following all of that news. It says, in this you rejoice, and having great joy in what you've heard about the living hope. But then it goes on to say, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials. And so that's basically addressing the fact right there that, we rejoice in this hope, but sometimes we do have to grieve our trials here. And I've definitely understood this in my own life. I went through a really tough year, which is a big part of my testimony, which many of you have heard, but in my life where I was just really stuck in this deep pit, and I got to this point where I thought I could never get out, and I'm usually a more optimistic person. And my optimism was almost what kept me back in a way, which I'm going to kind of explain. But when all the pain first hit and I was faced with some news, and I was just trying to process it, I was like, okay, I know I need to stay close to Jesus because that's just what I need to do. That's the only way I'm going to get through this. I was like, I don't want to drift away from that because I know that's what I need. And so I was like, I'm going to stay close to Jesus and everything like that. And that's what's going to get me through. So I basically, from that, I kind of assumed, okay, but that means I can't let any of this hurt get to me because, it's okay. It'll be fine. I'm going to be okay. Everyone will know I'm okay because God's got me. I'm going to continue speaking positivity. And yes, God did have me through it all. And I did have reason to still find joy in that. But at the same time, then one of my friends, I was talking to her about everything going on in my life. And she said to me, she's like, Mia, it's okay not to be okay, right? And that was immediately when, the barriers came down and, that hurt kind of touched my spirit. And because it's true. We, just like what it says here in 1 Peter 1:6, we do have to let that grief kind of hit us a little bit because I think I wasn't going to be able to heal without facing the reality of what I was going through. But that's what I want you guys to remember is that, yeah, it is okay not to be okay. We're going through so much. You guys have been through so much, and that's so valid and everything like that. But also know that don't stay there in that sorrow because there is a joy. There is a living hope that comes again. And let yourself feel and experience what you're going through, but also let God meet you right there. And I just had this vision of kind of talking about the pit too, just being stuck there and kind of grieving that for a little bit. And then I had this vision of God, Jesus crawling down there with me and sitting there with me and holding me, while I do cry and everything like that. But then he takes my hand and pulls me out. And so I just really think of that. It's okay not to be okay. This year's been hard, and that's no doubt about that. But also don't stay in the pit. Know that there is a way out and that God can guide you through that, and there is a living hope. that can pull us out of that pit. So, and then I'm going to read verse 6 and 7 from 1 Peter 1, but in the Message version, because I just love how it paraphrases it. But it says, I know how great this makes you feel, even though you have to put up with every kind of aggravation in the meantime. Pure gold put in the fire comes out of it proved pure. Genuine faith put through the suffering comes out proved genuine. When Jesus wraps this all up, it's your faith, not your gold, that God will have on display as evidence of his victory. So I didn't really know much about what refinement really was and being refined. But really, refinement is this process that's used to purify gold. So basically, in this process, they put the gold in the fire and extract all its impurities at its highest melting point to where it's totally liquefied so they can really sort through it. And once it comes out of the fire, then it's really counted as pure gold. And it's been purified. And I think this process is the same with our faith. I mean, it says it right here in 1 Peter 1 and in different places too. And Maverick City Music has a good song called Refiner that you guys should listen to. But it talks about that too. But it's the same process with our faith, Sometimes we need to be tried by the fire and go through the fire so our faith can be purified and made stronger and made more genuine. And I think that's exactly some of what this year has been and maybe what you're going through. It's hard, and that is so valid, but also know that, through that fire, it's strengthening our faith. And so now I'm going to go to a familiar story that most of us know, Daniel 3. I'm going to talk about the fiery furnace. So I'm going to flip there. Okay, so I'm kind of just going to summarize it really quick because it's a lot of good detailed information, but I'm going to summarize it. So basically, King Nebuchadnezzar, he's ruling in Jerusalem at this time. He's the king of Babylon, but he had just came in and besieged Jerusalem, kind of thrown them off their feet and everything like that. So they're kind of already struggling a lot. And then all of a sudden he's like, okay, I'm going to make this golden image and everyone needs to bow down and worship it and everything like that. And if you don't, you're going in the fiery furnace. You're going to be burned. And and this was a guy who didn't have mercy. He was very violent. Babylon was known as this overbearing kingdom that was going to take out places and not show any mercy. And that was exactly who he was, and people knew that. And everyone was well aware of the punishment that you were going to face. But there were 3 Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they continued to stand when everyone was bowing down and worshiping. And so at this point, I can't even imagine what this would feel like. Everyone's bowing down and worshiping. There's no hiding in this. Even if you're not going to do it, they're going to see you. And that's exactly what happens. Quickly, word spreads. They take them in, and the king is just furious. And so in this, I'm kind of just going to jump right into my points and break down the story with really the message of tonight. So basically, the message is going to be, how can we praise our way out of the pit? And so the first point I'm going to have on the screen is knowing that we have nothing to lose. And we're going to really look at what this looks like to have nothing to lose and live with that, because really in here they have the perfect even if kind of faith. So Daniel 3, 17 through 18, it says, if this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. So basically, they're in front of King Nebuchadnezzar. He gives them one more chance, okay, worship my statue. But they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And so he's like, okay, then let's see your God that will deliver you then. And they're like, okay, but even if he doesn't, we're not bowing down or anything like that, and we will still praise our God. So I just think that's a really beautiful picture of that even if kind of faith. And that goes back to praising our way out of the pit, living like we have nothing to lose, because we do have that living hope. And that goes exactly hand in hand with the even if kind of faith. Because of the hope that we have in our salvation that's sealed, we can live saying, okay, even if this doesn't go my way, even if I'm going to get persecuted for this, I'm still going to praise God, and I'm still not going to bow or give in to anything else, and speak for what I know and believe. And I think that's just such a beautiful picture and just such a challenge to live, because it is hard. I this story, I feel like God has really, he's taken me through some of Daniel lately, and I just feel like this story is such a classic, but I just feel like I keep coming back to it because I feel like it's really something we need to hear in the times that we're going through. And so basically, then we have the next point, which is God is with us in the fire. And so I'm going to read Daniel 3:25. So it says, he answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." So in this, they've been thrown in the fire. And by the way, King Nebuchadnezzar turned out like 7 times up. He's like, make it real hot because he was so mad. And at this point, basically the guards they chained each of them up, and the guards threw them in there. And at this point, it was so hot that it burnt and killed the guards that were outside. And so basically what we see in here is this picture of 4 men walking around unbound, no chains on them, just walking in the midst of these burning flames, and it's not engulfing him. They're not hurt. There's no pain on their faces even. And so this is just the same thing. Knowing that God is with us in the fire, through what we're going through that's such a struggle and so hard, knowing that God is right there with you. He's right there with you. And knowing his character, I think, is something that's really changed my life and my relationship with God. And through that tough year I was going through, I was like, okay, God, I need to get to know you again. Who are you to me? Who do you say you are? What are your promises? So I could really grasp and believe that and get to know him again, because knowing his character makes such a difference. Because, a lot of times it's, okay, so if you don't really know someone that well, it's harder to trust them and open up to them and really rely on them because you don't know their character. You don't know who they are. You have your guard up and want to trust. But if you know God's character and you know who he is and that he is good and trustworthy, then you can trust him and walk through the valleys with him and know that he won't leave you. And I just love in this too, I don't know what verse, but it says, then they just walked right out. He said, come out. They just walked right out, and they didn't even smell like smoke. Literally, when I stand by, when you have like a bonfire or anything, I smell so much like a fire, like so much like smoke, it's gross. But they're like in these flames and don't even have a scent of smoke on them, which I just think is insane. And so my last point I'm going to make is, not only does praise affect the posture of our heart and spirit, but it also changes the hearts of those around us. And I just think that's so important in this story. So we're going to look at verse 28 in Daniel 3. So it says, Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God." So this violent king who literally has just come to want to destroy and, everything like that, he sees this encounter and he's like, wow, who is this God that they serve? And really it changes him. And not only, and that's the same thing, praise, and this is just out of, when you're walking through something, but really praising and really saying, okay, God, I praise you. You are good because of this. And that just goes back to knowing his character. But even in that, it lifts our heart and it lifts our spirit. But it also, people start to notice. And it's the same thing. Maybe someone has said to you, okay, how are you getting through this? How do you seem so happy getting through this? How are you trudging through something when you're going through something so difficult? And that's when you say, because of Jesus, because of the living hope I have, because of I have this even if kind of faith, and because I know him. And then that changes who's around you. And I also just think about it back to going to refinement and everything like that. I was just thinking, these guys are already so bold in their faith. They're not going to bow down knowing the consequences. It would have been so easy just to bow down and be like, okay, I'm sorry, God, I didn't mean to do that. I just didn't want to die. But no, they said no, I'm not going to bow down. I'm going to stand up because this is my God that I believe in. And so I think, okay, but someone so bold, why do they physically, literally need to go into the fire and be tested like that? And I can kind of just I think this is a common question we all have, and to put it in different words, why do such bad things happen to good people? Or maybe, why am I going through this when I've been obedient to God, or when I haven't done anything like that? And I think it goes back, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, had this incredible encounter with God. Even though they were thrown into the fire, they weren't engulfed by the flames, and they literally were with like the face of God. They were with him, holding his hand. So obviously that strengthened them even more. That purified them even more and brought them out stronger. But I also even believe that King Nebuchadnezzar was tested by the fire. He wasn't in it, but he was close enough to where he saw this encounter and his life changes. And so I just think, maybe you're wondering that question. Okay, why am I struggling so much when I've been obedient, when I've done something like this? Why has something so terrible happened to me? Why have I lost so much when I praise you, God, I worship you already. So what's going on? But knowing that also it's not just your life, that God's using you and everything like that, but he wants to use you to speak to so many different people through what you're going through. And it just goes back to the power of your testimony. And even like this summer, we focus on Say So. And when the whole world was shut down and we were learning about saying so and the importance of your story and your testimony, it goes back to this. This has been a hard year and everything like that, and it seems like the hardest to say so, but I think it's the most important time to say so because people need to hear the living hope, and people need to know what you've gone through and knowing that you got through it because of Jesus. I just think that's so important, and something I need to remind myself of, but also I want to challenge you guys to remember. And so just to wrap it up I just want to remind you that our praise makes a difference. Like I said, you might just be floating through life right now, but really the posture of our heart and everything changes when we actually start praising God for who he is and shouting that out. And also our response to the fire matters. Through what we're going through all the trials and everything like that, like I said, feel that, let yourself know that that's hard, but don't stay in that. Don't stay in the pit. And know that refinement comes from the fire and that there's so much purifying that will come from that. And also know that what we do in the pit has significance. So, when we are struggling, because there will be seasons where we are in the mountains and we are in the valleys, but knowing, okay, what am I doing in this? How can, that change the outcome of it? And praise is one thing, being with God, reaching out to him, surrounding yourself with people that are going to be there for you and push you towards Christ. Instead of, because the enemy, we do have a real enemy, and that's another thing I want you to know. God's heart is good, and everything that happens to us, it is hard, but he also said in the Bible, he said, troubles will come your way, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. And so just knowing that is promised, but God's heart for us is good. He wants the best for us, but we also have to recognize we do have a very real enemy who's fighting against us, and he can't take away our eternity, but he can take away our witness. And so just being aware of that and knowing, okay, am I sitting here in this pain and not doing anything with it, or am I still praising God and trudging on? And so I just want to challenge each of us to let our war cry be praise. Going into 2021, because the pain's still there, the stuff is still there, but it's all about perspective still, and, we can really change the posture of our heart by praising God through that, and just knowing that we already have a victory. Jesus has already won. He's conquered the grave, but we just have to know how to claim it and how to live in that. So, yeah, that's it.